Welcome to Seeking Numina, the Sacred Places podcast. Today I am joined by Katie Ness, author of Word Witchery, The Path of the Poetry Priestess, and we're going to be talking about some sacred sites in the Mediterranean that I have not been to, on Sardinia as well as Cyprus. Katie Ness is a practicing hedgewitch and priestess who works with goddesses, ancestors, and the spirit world. She's also an initiated Magdalene priestess and a yoga teacher who completed her training in the Shakti tradition as a Bhakti yogini. And her work is a really beautiful blend of working with the sacred feminine, woven together with hereditary hedge witchery and folk magic. Welcome to Seeking Numina. I'm your host, Elise Wells, and I invite you to connect with the sacred wild within and around you through Numina, or sacred sites around the world, and the wisdom they hold. Together, let's remember the old ways, build relationships with land spirits, and dare to reach out to the fairies. The sacred wild is inviting you to dance in the moonlight. Will you answer their call? We had you on the Magic Kitchen, and we loved our conversation there. We spoke about incantation and poetry and words and sound and how those things work together. But the conversation was not over. We had to continue this journey of discussion because you open your book in your introduction, you talk about going to Cyprus quite a lot. And I would love to hear more because I've not been to Cyprus. As folks know, I'm good friends with George Lizos. He's been on the show to talk about Cyprus. And I've talked with him about visiting, but I always wait for the spirit of place to physically call me there, like for that to be the place I'm meant to visit, and it becomes a long journey of preparation leading up to that pilgrimage. And for some reason, Cyprus has not called me yet, but I feel like our conversation today might change that, and it might change that for a lot of folks listening. So tell me about Cyprus.
I think, given that you're now speaking to me and you've spoken with George, maybe this is your calling.
It's
And I,
2026 now, so new
yeah,
world.
and I also feel like I really want to get you in touch with my friend Despina, who is also friends with George. So it feels like there's a connection there. I can share my experiences in Cyprus, but I don't feel like I might be the best person to speak to. You might disagree. We'll have this conversation. But I do want to connect you with Despina. She's a priestess of Aphrodite, and she's recently just done a show based on being a priestess of Aphrodite, and it was so gorgeous. I've seen clips of it on her Instagram, and all, her and her friends who are also priestesses. They're all dressed in these white gowns, and this whole beautiful show that I didn't get to see, sadly. So yeah, if you would like to be connected with her, I'm sure she would love to talk to you. And I feel like she works a lot with archaeologists and historians as well. So she would be a really great person to talk to about yeah, the history and the archaeology of the entire island, really, I think.
Yeah. Oh
But
yeah, I'd love to meet her.
yeah, she's one of those people that's just so magical. Everybody falls in love with her. So she's a gorgeous person. My experience with Cyprus was by accident. I was 19 and I was going to university, and I ended up becoming friends with a whole bunch of rowdy Cypriot students. I started dating somebody at the time who's Cypriot, and his mum was like, "Oh, come to Cyprus and come stay with us, Gordy." And I was like, "Really? Okay." So that's how I ended up there. And I'm 19 years old and experiencing this whole other culture and lifestyle and languages and food. And I really took to it. I don't know. I just felt like I was supposed to be there. The climate suited me, the diet suited me. And I was told a lot by a lot of Cypriots that although I speak English, that I'm Cypriot, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? So they kind of made me one of them, and I'm an honorary Cypriot. Evangelos, who I'm good friends with now, jokes that I'm like the female version of Indiana Jones. Like I had this obsession with like going to these like crumbling old ruined churches or like archaeological sites or anything I could go and see. And he just wanted to sit and have a coffee in the sun. And there's so many places that I've not explored yet. One of the biggest ones which I regret, and I don't know why I've not been there yet, is in Paphos. And that's, where it says that Aphrodite rose from the sea. I've only been there once and I saw the Aphrodite's rock, but there's a whole archaeological site about her, and I haven't been yet. Can you believe that?
Well,
um,
but no, I can. I think spirits of place, there's a level of readiness we have to have for certain places.
mm,
One of the places I take folks to on one of my pilgrimages, on the intuition activation pilgrimage, I mark that as an advanced pilgrimage because we go to the Chrysian cave. It's the original place where the Pythia was from. And
mm,
the downloads, the channeled wisdom that you receive there is so heavy, not heavy like sad, but monumentous. It's momentous. It's literally just a lot. And
mm,
when I went there the first time, I actually felt I did an episode on this here on the channel for those watching. It's I think the second episode of the show. I felt a dragon step on my chest and it didn't lift. The pain did not go away. It felt like I like broke my collarbone. It was very painful. It didn't go away for 72 hours. And I said at the time, about a day into this, I said, okay, if, I woke up with it, it was still there. Woke up the second day, it was still there. I said, if it's still there tonight, I'm going to the ER because I don't know how it happened, but I must have broken something.
mm.
And but then it lifted right as I was hitting a point where I was about to leave. So it's a very, and I was 13 years into my, maybe 11, 12 years into my journey at that point. I felt fully ready. I felt fully called there. And yet it was still a lot to take in. And there's been times where the land spirits tell me no. Glastonbury. I've been at the, you've been to Glastonbury. There's like that
Yeah,
post, the wooden post. I've been there twice in my car, about to go. And the
yeah,
land's like, not yet.
yeah,
And I'm like,
yeah,
what? So I had a great time. Other time, the first time I went to Salisbury and I got to experience the cathedral and I actually got to go to an evensong there and hear the singing in the cathedral. And then the second time, a couple of years later, I went to Avebury instead and I was meant to go there and leave some cluties on the tree. And so it worked out as it was meant to. So never beat yourself up that like, oh, why didn't I go? Because you were
yeah.
probably following a deeper intuition.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there. Just remembering that I was only 19 at the time, and there was probably, as you say, an intuitive, intrinsic pull to be there and to go to Cyprus. But I, at the time, probably didn't understand what that was about. And the the longer I've connected to that land, as an outsider, the more I've been like pulled to it, to its history, to find out that deeper connection. Like, why am I so intrigued by Cyprus? Why do I want to keep coming back? Of course, I love my friends, but there's something there, and maybe the land was saying, with certain places, not right now. It's when you will be ready. So now I'm 40, and I've been planning. They all want to meet my partner. So I was like, okay, so it's like we're going to be taking a trip, and I've said to him like, I want to take a trip to Paphos and to really really connect with these sacred places that are associated with Aphrodite, Aphrodite's baths, and there's also an archaeological site as well. And I believe there is a church, but I'm not quite sure. I need to check in with Despina. So yeah, you're onto something there for sure.
And that's a good point, too, that many of the sacred places that we'll need to visit as pilgrims are going to be churches now. Because
Yeah.
they've taken the spiritual resonance, especially in these ancient places. They know the spiritual resonance is there, and so why would they put the church somewhere else? The energy's
Right.
flowing.
You've just reminded me. So when I stayed with Despina and Evangelos for a month, she was getting married in 2019. She took me to a place, and it didn't. I mean, it was beautiful to me. It didn't look like much. It was. I think there was if I remember right, that there was a hill and a cliff, and there was a monastery on the top of that cliff. And then she said she showed me the land, and there was only it was like a car park that we couldn't really go any further. And she was telling me that this land was once full of trees. And then you think of I forget the name of the author who wrote that book about Cyprus. That evades me. This sacred land of trees. But then she said that monastery women are not allowed to go to, but it was once a temple of Aphrodite. And I was like, so gutted that we weren't allowed to go further up and just be around that vicinity when it once upon a time used to be a place of the sacred feminine associated with this beautiful goddess, overlooking the sea, I believe, if my memory serves me. Um,
That's a very common Orthodox
yeah,
play. There's Mount Athos, which is a really famous male-only monastery in Greece, and that was a sacred isle to Artemis, where women were only allowed.
interesting. It's so
Hmm.
sad to me. But I feel like Despina would probably tell you a lot more than I can. From my perspective, I'm just feeling the energies and then listening to what she has to say and teaches me more and more about this land. And I keep going back. I've been 7 times now. I would absolutely love to learn Greek Cypriot, but you have to learn Greek first. And they're similar but very different dialects at the same time. So my dyslexic brain is like, I don't know if I can do this. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's definitely something really special about Cyprus. And I think that given that you have such a connection, you are Greek, and you have such a connection to mainland Greece, you absolutely should visit Cyprus, especially as you are a woman of the goddess. Um, so maybe my message to you is that it's your turn now to go.
Yeah.
Perhaps, yeah.
Yeah. And Aphrodite, I think what I'm most excited to do in Cyprus is, to me, Cyprus is the liminal. It's the bridge between the East and the West. And in
Mm,
some ways, we could see all of Greece as forming that bridge, but Cyprus is the threshold to the
yep.
gateway that is Greece being the connector between the West and the East. Um, and Cyprus, that's where she comes through. So for those listening, Inanna is really the origin goddess of Aphrodite. She began as Inanna. She was worshipped by other tribes with very similar names, so as Ishtar, Ashtaroth, Asherah, Astarte. So we can hear how similar these names are, and it really was dialectical differences. It's pretty accepted scholarship and spiritualship that it's, this is essentially the same goddess, and so it's Venus energy. It's the planet of Venus. It's all the things that have to do with Venus, her orbit. That was something observed by the ancient people, so they knew that. They knew that it was a flower. They knew that. And we can remember that. And it comes to us, anyone who's from the West, anyone who's from west of Iran or the Levant or the Fertile Crescent, as it's called, you are from the West and you have Inanna and her lineage to thank for that. And Aphrodite is who she comes as to the West.
Mhm.
And I think of this in terms of many deities do this. In Hinduism, that's how Rama comes. It's actually it's Vishnu, right? Am I getting that correct? I think it's Vishnu who comes down to earth as a
Yes,
god.
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And he has 8 incarnations, and we're still waiting on
Okay.
one more. He's supposed to still
Yeah.
come one more time. But they come, these gods come to Earth to help us relate to the moment we're in. And so this dark goddess lineage, and dark is not, people think bad. People think bad magic, black magic. It's not dark like that. It's the shadow. It's the fearlessness of the void that it
Hmm.
encourages us to turn towards and say, wait, why am I not supposed to look at that? Oh, it's not so
Hmm.
scary after all. Oh, it can actually help me be more powerful. Oh, let's move forward with this. So that's what the dark goddesses came to show us. And Aphrodite is such an important moment in history because she came to a world that was increasingly patriarchal. Not at
Hmm.
first, she comes to Cyprus as a matriarchal matriarchal tribal nation. And as she moves closer and closer to what we think of as the West, the world gets more patriarchal. That only increases over time. And so now people think of her, if you don't know much about Aphrodite, you might think of her as a goddess of love and beauty. That is so reductive. It's like maybe a sixth of the pie. She's
Yeah.
so much more.
Yeah. And I'm going to add to that a little bit. I actually wrote a paper. I didn't write a paper. I read a paper a while ago, which I found really fascinating. I was asked to write an article for a magazine. It eventually didn't get published because they said it was too long. Because I went right down a rabbit hole of like trying to write that Cyprus and Aphrodite is so much more than what we think. And I started looking into Cypriot pottery and all these kinds of things. And I learned, and going back to what you said about Cyprus being a threshold, place, a threshold island, you're absolutely right, because in a certain period of their history, when they were trading with Egypt, they had they were known for their poppies. So the Cypriots would create opium and poppy oils, and they have these special jugs that look like inverted poppies that are upside down, and they would send these jugs of opium and poppy oil to Egypt. And then Egyptians would trade with them Blue Lotus. And then you find out that Cyprus was an island that was similar to Glastonbury. It was a place of pilgrimage. So you think about the surrounding areas, the mainland areas, often there was wars and conflict and stuff. So Cyprus was seen by many people around to a place of sanctuary where you could go and have orgies. You could go and honor the dead. And that's why we learn that Aphrodite is so much more than a goddess of love and beauty. She's also a goddess of death and the threshold, and so much more, because Cyprus was a sacred island to the ancients in the same way that Sardinia was also classed as a sacred island. And then Glastonbury was a sacred place as well. So we have all these places around the world that are very, I suppose, in a way, heart-centered. It's that bridge between our baser instincts of the lower chakras and the higher chakras. They're all heart-centered, and they usually have a mother goddess associated with them. These special places. Yeah,
It's fantastic. It's so beautiful. And it's interesting because Delphi is often considered the spiritual navel of the universe, which comes from the
Mm.
word omphalos, which is the egg. And we'll put this up on the YouTube video. You'll see this photo come up. The egg that is tied with tenia, sacred ribbons. It's a carved stone egg, but it looks like ribbons carved around, tied around it.
Mhm.
And that was at the entrance to the Temple of Apollo, and that was considered the actual heart space of,
Mm.
they said, the universe. And we have some record of people pilgrimaging from India even to get to Delphi in antiquity. So was it viewed by a more global in a more global way as the center of the universe? Maybe. It seems like yes. But I also think of it as like our navel. It is our solar plexus. It is this bridge. To me, the solar plexus up to the heart chakra, this section of our torso is our center. It's that liminal space. It's a threshold between
Yeah,
the lower self, the earthly self, the human seeking human things, and the higher self that remembers the lifetimes before, that remembers why we're here in this lifetime, our purpose.
yeah,
So it is the navel in that way. Going to a place like Delphi, going to a temple in Cyprus, these are places that activate us back to
yeah.
our true self.
Yeah, they're portals, I think.
Mm,
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. And it's so fascinating that I think in our modern world, especially with archaeology and history, they tend to separate things and put things in boxes. But the more you uncover, the more you realize that people were connecting and trading and telling stories. There's so many stories about mermaids and dragons and so many things that they all have different names, but it's the same thing that everybody's talking about. And I think we also look at different religions and spiritual paths as elements of, oh, that's from there and that's from there. And I just think we were once upon a time a community of people that were connected in different ways, in different places, and we all went on pilgrimages. And I know I sound really lighthearted and being like, oh, once upon a time we were all living a really happy, fun, special time, and there wasn't any war and conflict. And I'm not saying that. I just think that there's definitely a connection in. I do think that there's heart portals everywhere, like as you say. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
yeah. And we were meant to pilgrim. We were meant to be
Yeah,
pilgrims. We were meant
we
to
are.
do this. And it's so interesting because we've never, as a human species, never lived in a time where it was easier to pilgrimage. Like you don't have to risk your life to
True.
go to Greece at all. Like it's sure you have to spend money, but your life is not being threatened. There was definitely the reality of even if there was no war happening on your route to Greece, there was animals. You were probably camping in the wilderness along that route. The route required walking. It required physical stamina. It required a lot of funds, way more than we would need today to hop on a flight and, pick up a sandwich on the drive in. it was significant sacrifice of time and energy for the ancients. And so it meant a lot to them. And I think that's what's lost sometimes in the way modern people pilgrimage is
Mm.
they think, "Oh, I could do this cheaper. Oh, I know what I'll do. I'll just go to Athens for one night on my way to this work thing in France. And then I'll see the Parthenon and then I've seen Greece. Checked it off my list." And it's like that's not pilgrimage.
No.
Pilgrimage is time consuming. It is energy consuming because that's your offering to the
Mhm.
journey.
Yeah, you've articulated much better than I have. Agreed.
How was Sardinia? Because I've never been and truly was not even called. Like when I was invited by somebody, and it could have been the group I was invited by, but I just was like, no, not going to be the vibe. But then you were telling me about Sardinia on the Magic Kitchen podcast, and so if you don't mind repeating a little bit about that site you went to and what's it feel like?
Oh my goodness. I kind of felt like it was home. Again, similar to Cyprus. I always end up in places. I do a little bit of research, but I always end up in places where I'm like, oh wow, it's so full of the sacred feminine. I'm supposed to be here then. And that was one of those situations where the year before we went to Sicily, and then we were like, let's go to Sardinia because oftentimes a lot of people go to mainland Italy, and there's nothing wrong with that beautiful place. But I often think that Sardinia gets overlooked, and a lot of people are like, Sardinia, where's that? And I'm like, it's Italian, it's an Italian island. And I just felt this really strong pull to go there. And a friend of mine went and said, "Oh, it's right up your street. It's it's Italian, but it's not Italian, and you won't understand what I mean until you go." And then I learned that my DNA has some Sardinian in it as well. And I was like, oh, well, that's where I get my curly hair from then. um, and the first time we went, we fell in love with the area. And we actually we didn't go very far the first time round. We managed to get on a local train and we went to this archaeological site, which I've really forgotten the name of. But there were so many temples in this site, and it was by this beautiful beach by the sea. And I'm pretty sure I read again there was temple space and there was associated with priestesses, but the name evades me. And I remember going the first time, it was only for a week, and I said to my partner, I'm already missing this place and I feel like I need to go back. And he said, yeah, me too. Should we go back? And I was like, let's go back. So we went this September for 10 days as a sort of birthday present to myself. It's like my big 4-0. So I was like, we've got to go for longer. And we rented a car, and our friend Sylvia took us to a really special place that actually not a lot of people know. And it's called the Santa Cristina Well. And actually, my friend who is half Italian, half Spanish, Nympha, was telling me as well, you have to go back, you have to go and see this place. Did you know that Sardinia was sort of like ruled by water priestesses? And I was like, no, I did not know this. And she was like, yeah, you really have to go. So that was another reason why we went back, and we went to this special place. And it's been Christianized to be called Santa Cristina, but it's a Nuragic site. And the entire complex looks like a vagina. It's triangular in formation, and then it's got the womb circle around that, and then you go down into the portal. It's like a portal. You go down the steps, and there's water at the bottom, the waters of the womb. And what's so special about this place is they say, in theory, that the priestesses would come here to because blessing the water and things, but also it was like a cosmic mirror. So at certain times, certain alignments of the sky, especially during the equinox, which they still practice today. Modern day priestesses and spiritual people still go there today to honor these waters. And you can go down and you look up and you can see the moon on a clear night, and its light penetrates into the sacred womb space. And so just thinking about that gives me goosebumps. That this is such an ancient site, Nuragic. You're talking like it's so ancient, and it's still relevant to today. And yeah, it was so magical. And I had to go back twice. So the first time I went with my friend Sylvia and Claudia, and it was very quiet. So we just had the place largely to ourselves. And even my friend Sylvia had to take a moment, and she sat under a tree and she was just really feeling the energies. And I went the second time with my partner, and that was during the equinox. And me being on holiday, had no idea because like time evaded me, and I was just like, what's going on? Why is there so many people? And there's like these beautiful women dressed in these priestess gowns and the crystals. And I was like, is there a special occasion? And then the lady was like, it's the equinox. And I was like, oh yeah, silly me, silly witch. I should have known. And there was so many women just praying and chanting and drumming to this place. And you can just go down into the portal and just sit on the steps and just be with the water. And the acoustics in that place it's tiny, this tiny chamber. The acoustics is just amazing. And I said on your previous podcast, I'm not a singer, but something in me wanted to chant. So I started chanting, and I was chanting mantras to goddesses in that place. And I still think of it to this day. And I would say anybody who is walking the priestess path, anybody who is working with the sacred feminine, you have to go there. It's so special. And I'm not doing it justice with my words at all, but it's you can Google it and learn more about this special place. And actually, what's really interesting about Sardinia is very similar to Malta. I've never been
That's
to
what I've
Malta,
Yes, that's what
but
I've been thinking this whole time is they sound like the Nuragic civilization sounds exactly like the Tarsians, just disappeared.
yeah, I watched a documentary of Malta, how they had these special places across the island. And it's the same in Sardinia. You can drive down the motorway, and there's Nuragic buildings and temples just off the side of the road. It's covered in these special monuments, and places where these ancient people lived. And yet, it's a place where the water priestesses kind of were guardians of the island. And if you go to the city of Calgary, which is where you usually fly into, there is a museum, and in the museum there are Nuragic brass figurines of priestesses. And what's interesting, they wore capes and these little conical hats that's similar to, you know, the traditional sort of, I suppose, witchy kind of imagery that we know of today. Beautiful. I highly recommend you have to go.
Oh, so stunning. I think what impresses me, I think, so talking about what we were saying earlier is how some sacred sites are a bit more advanced than others. I think Sardinia and Malta, because not a lot of people are visiting them in spiritual capacities. Some people are, I think Sardinia got attention for a bit because of a resort that started marketing retreats. So like I saw a lot of like random people going and like doing photo shoots. So sort of like Santorini. So there was that weird overlap where I was like, oh, is Sardinia just the new Santorini? Which
Mm.
Santorini has incredible sacred places, but that wasn't where people were taking their photos. Um, and so I kind of wrote it off as like a tourist island, sadly. Um, and then and then we had our conversation, and I was like, oh, uh-huh.
Well,
Yes.
go
Sorry,
on.
what were you gonna say?
I was going to say, it's interesting you say that, because the two times I've been there, there's not a lot of Western tourists, as in like
Oh,
English
that's
speaking
brilliant.
tourists. It's largely Italian and some German. And so that was what, like, as well as learning that I have Sardinian DNA. I mean, it's not a lot, but it's, you know, there was an ancient ancestor that was Sardinian. This made me pick up Italian, because then I can converse with the locals in a very basic Italian. There really isn't a lot of tourism from, you know, like England or America or places like that. I also want to say that we managed to go to the north of Sardinia as well, and there's an entire island dedicated to Mary Magdalene called La Maddalena. Yeah, I don't know why, other than that there is a church there, but that is a place of paradise. It's literally a tiny port town, and then the rest of it is just these sublime beaches. And I don't know why nobody has thought to run retreats there or anything because it's the Magdalene energy is right there. So
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah. Oh, that's powerful.
yeah.
And oh, that's where I was going with it. So they're advanced places spiritually, I think, also because in the beginning of our spiritual journeys, and even for some of us longer, sometimes we don't realize how much we adhere to this still. We really worry that we're going crazy, that we're making it up, that this isn't real. It's all in my head. And so we try to go to books and verify. And I think that's why the Greeks are so popular, to be honest. It's because we have a lot of books. We have a lot of
Yeah.
writing, not about what I study. Like once you go into prehistory, there's not a lot of translated written record. But people like the Hellenistic period, Hellenic polytheism, because you can almost reconstruct things. That's how well documented it is. When we're talking about Malta with the Tarsians or Sardinia with the Nuragic, there was absolutely nothing written down by that culture. There's like passing mentions by Phoenicians, which aren't even by Phoenicians, it's by Greeks who heard from a Phoenician, who heard from a Tarsian or a Nuragic. So you have got to trust what the land shows you when you go to those
Mhm.
places. And that perfect trust, and I talk about this a lot on the podcast, but perfect love and perfect trust, that's the foundation of me as a person, of everything I do. It's the uniting principle of how I show up in the world and how I work with energies, the land, the goddess. Because perfect love and perfect trust, these are foundations in modern witchcraft, but they come from a deeper foundation. The word perfect has been so perverted to mean flawless or you know, it just excellent or, something unachievable.
Mhm.
What the word perfect means is telia, totelos, the end, the perfection that is completion. So instead, approaching it with this is a complete experience, it is complete unto itself. Me standing here drumming at this oracle site that no one else has stood on, in my knowledge, for over 2,000 years. Maybe no one's even known that this is what that is. It's this old rocky thing behind a church I had to hike through snakes and all kinds of stuff for 20 minutes to get to. So, yeah, maybe I am the first person here in thousands of years. I'm being shown something. They're asking me to sing this song. Why would I not sing it? Just because I
Mhm.
can't go in a book somewhere and verify that this was trust the land. Trust the land when it shows you what you can experience there. Because at the end of the day, none of us are, you're not going, quite honestly, it doesn't matter if there's no written record of it. It doesn't make it any
Yeah.
less powerful.
Yeah, I hear you. And at the beginning of my book, I kind of have that sort of similar feeling. I went to just because I was feeling like a history nerd and I wanted to go see this place. My friend, who is a druid, said, "Did you know that there is a shrine to the goddess Minerva in Chester, which is down the road from where I was born and I grew up?" And I was like, "No, I had no idea." And she's like one of the oldest known shrines in the UK that was left over by the Romans. She's 2,000 years old. And I was like, why isn't this more widely known? So I went to go see this place and I had this instant need to drum and connect with her in the landscape. And she looks neglected, like there was, trash and wrappers and it was overgrown. And I just thought, if people knew more about this place, then that would become like a place of pilgrimage between, again, those of the sacred feminine and pagans to actually treat this place with a little bit more respect. But I say in my book that it looked like a sort of like disheveled, overgrown tooth that's stuck in the hillside, and I felt really, really bad. There are some people that have left offerings and like clooties, like ribbons and flowers, but again, I was so saddened, and that's why I put that in the book. And it was that gave me this hit of information, this inspiration. And I turned to my partner. I was like, I think I'm going to write a book. And then I learned that Minerva is the goddess that you invite her in. She's kind of like a muse goddess, and you invite her in for your inspiration and ideas and things like that. And I was like, oh, so the land told me to connect with her, and I did. And then she blessed me with this idea to write a book all about the sacred feminine related to like words and poetry and things. And that's pretty much how it began. Same as
Oh,
you.
that's
Yeah.
beautiful. The land does it. It knows what it wants.
Yeah.
We need to know how to listen. and then
Agreed.
allow ourselves to believe what we heard when we listened.
Yeah, and you were telling me about your work and what you do and how you take people on these pilgrimages. I think it's so important. And so I think what you're doing is absolutely incredible.
Oh, thank you. And it is important for the sisterhood because the land loves me going there, but it's expecting others. It's like just you. Like it's looking behind
Yeah.
me like what's going where's everyone else? So but when we come as a group, this year I actually in 2025, I should say, last year, I hosted my biggest pilgrimage ever. So there's 13 of us. And it was wild. Like you could feel the land be like, wow, everyone's here. We could process as a procession. It was really special.
Yeah.
But then I also feel like I was telling you too, like now my groups are about 6 people, so it's 7 of us total, and that is the perfect number. That is the perfect number because it allows us to each have a role in ancient procession revival that we do at these retreats, and then it
Mhm.
also allows enough people to have private time while somebody else might need to have one person to talk to. Everybody gets that flow. It happens beautifully with that number. So yeah, it's important to go. Like, because a lot of people are like, oh, I don't have any Greek history or ancestry or connection. I don't know why I'm called. So I guess I'm not called. I'm like, no, you're called. You're absolutely being called. This work can't be done by one person, and it can't be done in a vacuum. And unfortunately, Greek modern culture is not going to be the culture to do it. It does have to come from people who are multicultural and connecting beneath the simple labels and connecting deeper to what is real, the land spirits, the earth.
Yeah. My friend, who is an elder of a Indigenous Canadian tribe of the Bear, said the same thing as you. I've been crafting dream catchers since I was a kid, and I was always feeling so guilty. Like, should I be doing this? Because I'm not indigenous to that land. And he said to me that he teaches dreamcatcher crafting to kids of all diverse backgrounds because in his head, like we're all one. And
Yeah.
if there is a child that's white American that wants to learn this, then he's passing on this special information to somebody who sees it as special, and they will carry it on, and it continues on to the human history and that love. And he said if it calls to you, then it's meant for you. As long as you follow that call with respect and love, then there's nothing wrong with that.
Katie, thank you so much for joining me here in the Sacred Places podcast. Tell people where they can find you. And also, Word Witchery is available from Moon Books, everybody.
I'm really glad you like my book, and thank you for having me here. You can find me on Instagram. I am working on a website. I'm not very techy with things like this, but you can find me on Instagram at Katie_wild_witch. And my book can be found on Amazon, UK Amazon and Amazon America. I'm not sure about Australia. I need to check my publicist, but also in all bookshops where books are sold. And if it's not on the bookshelves of independent shops, I'm sure they can order it in for you. So yeah, that's pretty much it, really.
Well, thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
you.
For those listening, if you don't listen to the Magic Kitchen podcast, go check out Katie's interview over there. We talk way more about the poetry side of this wonderful book, Word Witchery. And I look forward to staying in touch. And let me know. I'd love to have Despina on the show. She would be a
I
great
will.
guest.
Gosh, yeah, you'll love her, I promise.
Thank you for seeking Numina with me today. Join me at patreon.com/Elise Wells to support this show and get access to a library of rituals, exclusive videos, meditations, and more. To learn more about my upcoming retreats, book a tarot reading, or learn with me in workshops, classes, or mentorship, visit seekingnumina.com.